Welcome to the Veterinary Marketing Podcast, where it's all about helping your veterinary practice attract, engage, and retain clients. Broadcasting a new podcast every Monday from sunny Southern California, here's your host, Brandon Bashirs.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to episode number 167 of the Veterinary Marketing Podcast. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Today, we are going to be talking with our guest, Sandra Byron from Digital Vet Marketing. Sandra and I met by working together on a project, and I had known about her beforehand, and she's been in the industry. She does some really great work when it comes to digital marketing in the space. So I talked to her about the current trends that are happening inside of digital marketing, what she thinks is important, kind of how to approach digital marketing. And it's, I think, a great conversation. It has a lot of wonderful insights, and I know you're going to get a lot of value out of it. So be sure to listen all the way through. If you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe in iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. And before we begin, I just want to mention a few things. First, if you haven't done so already, be sure to head on over to that Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/the veterinary marketing nerds. Be sure to request to join. You can get help. You can ask questions. You can collaborate. It's a great place to hang out. We almost have 900 members, so that's exciting. Be sure to head on over there. It's a great place for additional resources and help. And as always, if there's anything that you ever need help-wise, be sure to comment inside of that group. That's probably the best place to get response from me if you need help with anything in particular. So let's jump into today's episode. Today we have an interview, as I mentioned, with Sandra Byron from Digital Vet Marketing. She's got a fantastic background in digital marketing and helping practices to really get the most out of their marketing. So I think that she has definitely some unique insights because of the way that she works with the practices that she works with. And so I think that it's a great approach in general. So today we're going to be talking about everything from, some of the biggest mistakes she sees practices making to if you're just starting out or if you're trying to figure out and get a good plan, what is it that you should be focusing on and how should you get started, where marketing is going in the future, and a bunch of other topics in between. So it's a great episode. Be sure to listen all the way through. And again, please let me know if there's anything that you need in help. But without further ado, here is the episode with Sandra Byron. So on this week's podcast, we have Sandra Byron from Digital Vet Marketing, DVM, which is a really cool name. I think that the acronym is awesome. Surprised that wasn't taken. How are you doing?
No.
Amazing.
I'm fine. Thanks, Brandon.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Can you give us just a quick rundown of how you got in the industry and how long you've been working in the industry and things like that?
Certainly. I actually transitioned over to veterinary marketing almost 10 years ago. It's been about 8 to 10 years ago. I did marketing consulting in Silicon Valley in tech companies for companies like Cisco Systems and Sun Microsystems, and worked in both engineering, product management, customer support experience work there, and a tech company that's now owned by Visa. So I led a lot of high-level projects that involved most of the company, like integrations and development and new products and those kinds of things with major banks and other big companies. So I when I moved to Arizona, suddenly it just was like the kind of work that I did, the kind of industries I worked in weren't here. And so I was looking for a way to take my skill set and apply it to something new, and veterinary marketing, digital marketing. It was really ascending at that point. It was becoming something that was important for veterinary hospitals to know about and put into use. And I just transitioned to that.
That's amazing. That is early on in the digital marketing space in the veterinary industry. I still feel like it's still catching up. So, even when I've been doing the podcast now for 5 years, and I feel like it was still all just yellow pages and, should we start a Facebook page? So I can't imagine what it was like 10 years ago.
Well, absolutely. Even like in the early days, most people didn't have a Facebook page yet. They didn't have any digital presence. If they had a Facebook page at all, they were having the receptionist do something with it, or maybe a vet tech if they really put some importance to it. But it was something that was so low on their radar. Just getting them to understand, like you said, to switch out of yellow pages and to think about a digital presence was a huge shift.
Absolutely. It's interesting too. I mean, you still look at Yellow Pages and you see that the veterinary section is filled with colored half-page ads. It's amazing. So with your company and the consulting that you do, and that's how we spoke. I've heard of you before, having spoken with you, but we are working on some ads thing for a client of yours. What are the kind of things that you do in your consulting for veterinary practices?
Well, I mean, digital marketing, it is really, there's such a bundle of digital marketing. It's really developed out. So there's, obviously strategy and planning and reporting are huge aspects. That's kind of the foundation. Then, of course, there's social media posting and optimizing those accounts. Then there's social media ads. There's Google search ads. There's Google My Business and managing that specific listing presence. And then all sorts of other citations, Google Maps, Apple Maps, Yelp, all those other citation listings where people go to check you out. Blogging, huge on blogging. One of my clients last month, the last quarter, I just had pulled their blogging results for last quarter, 40,000 website visits.
Wow.
To their blog.
That's impressive.
Just for the blog for last quarter. And we do email marketing, very visual email marketing, there's very little text. It's almost all visual with links out to things. We leverage the blogs that we do. That's one of the things we do in our email, but all sorts of email marketing, online reputation management. It gives my clients a little bit of a distance. So when someone, I automatically respond to 5-star reviews, but those 1-star reviews that are very emotional for clients, I am able to be a little more objective, step back, craft a good response to that. And one of the things my clients love about my services is the voice that I use and the connection that I make through interaction with clients. So I'm able to do that in reputation management, doing local search engine optimization, sort of everything about making sure the website looks good, that it has the right keywords, that it functions well, and then also any other aspects of local organic search engine optimization. And, it's all a package, as you know, Brandon. Any one of these things don't really stand alone. You really want to, each of them reinforces each other. So, but what I do, unlike a lot of agencies, they have a package. So you can get the small or the large package, and this is what it comes with. And with me, I have a modular list of services. And so I know each client is in a different place. And so which things are most important to them, what they can afford, we figure that out together, and they have their own custom package that they put together.
Very cool. That's really, really cool. That's very comprehensive, and it sounds, I'm sure to most people, extremely overwhelming, just because there's so many things. So
yeah, exactly. Practice managers and hospital administrators are so busy. All of my clients are super busy, and it's always changing. There's so many aspects. There's no way they can stay on top of it all, much less with what's changing, and certainly be able to go in and effectively implement even half of it. And one thing I forgot to mention just a moment ago, one of the things I think is a huge value add is I act as a technical liaison for my clients. If it's just recently they wanted to take a lot of their pre-visit forms and put them online and get them, we automated them. So depending on their answer, which questions they see next online, it's basically around the logic of what questions they'll see based on as they fill out the form. So, being able to be the liaison for that and help guide the programmer on what needed to happen, or whether there's, just working with you as the, from a PPC perspective, being able to look at the results, interpret the results, come back, make recommendations, that type of thing, stuff with the website, changes to the website, changes to content, to structure. I advise them. Sometimes they're like, can you go out and research this for me? Or can you, I want a holiday video, animated video for the clients. Can you do that for me? So it's, that's the nice thing, is that it's not the same thing every day.
Definitely. That makes a lot of sense. Well, I would love to get your take when somebody comes to you, or if you're looking at somebody's, maybe their entire presence in general, kind of what is the hierarchy of importance in terms of what do you think that people should focus on first, and kind of work from highest to lowest points of. I would just be interested to get your take. A lot of times I think that, I love paid ads. And so almost always my answer is you should run ads, but, not necessarily, because there's always other things, right? But, I love ads, but what would be your kind of opinion on that?
Well, obviously, assuming we've got a strategy and we've kind of put together, because strategy is very, very key.
Absolutely.
But once you kind of have that in place, and my opinion on that has kind of shifted. I really think you've got to have a good website. I mean, that's so key. And if you can't afford to go out and completely redo your website, there's a lot that you can at least do to make it better.
Sure.
Ideally, they build a new mobile responsive is huge. They need to be mobilely responsive, and not just responsive, but they need to have a very solid mobile presence, because most people are accessing them on their phone now. After that, I used to say social media because it's kind of a low bar of entry.
Sure.
A lot of them can go have a Facebook page. A lot of them can do it themselves, that kind of thing. But I have to say, the ascendancy of search ads, and I have more expertise in Facebook ads. I have been doing Facebook ads for, many, many years. I've taught a lot of webinars on Facebook advertising, but I'd have to say I would probably guide my clients to Google or search ads first before I would take them to Facebook, because search ads, you're getting instant visibility in search. Because you can work with organic SEO and gradually dominate search over time. But if you want to be at the top of search results quickly, Google ads can do that for you, or PPC ads can do that. And that's pay-per-click, just in case anyone isn't clear on that. But then also too, you're meeting people at the point of need when, they are already looking for a vet. They're looking for a place to board their pet. They're looking for a groomer. They're looking for something, and you are right there when they're looking for that. Whereas, on the Facebook ad side, for example, you're creating demand. You're helping them think about something that maybe they haven't thought about. Maybe they're like, oh, this vet, I like this vet. And sometimes it's developing a relationship over time, or it's, they're reading your blog, or they're doing something like that. Since we're not selling a product, I think Google Ads is huge. So that would be, making sure your Google My Business and some of your key listings are in good shape, because Google cares about that a lot.
Definitely.
They want fresh content on your website. So blogging, I would say, is important. I would say getting the website down, getting PPC ads, those are two of the key things.
Definitely. I would definitely agree with that. And I too run a bunch of Facebook ads, and I just think that the medium is great, and Instagram and Facebook are the same. Mm-hmm. And I think that people should be doing that. But yeah, if you want that immediate, meeting people at need, which is a great phrase, I think that's definitely a great point. So totally would agree. Now, I think one of the interesting things that you do, you probably work a lot more closely with practice owners, more so. I'm friends and have tons of friends and people that are practice owners in general, but I don't necessarily work so much in that consulting type relationship. I just am more a service provider. So I would be interested to get your opinion on this. But with a veterinary practice owner, mm-hmm. How much do you think they should know about all of this stuff? Because again, it is overwhelming, right? And so part of your role is to insulate them from having to do too much. And I'm sure it's always a fight to try to say, hey, step back, you need to go and focus on what is going to make you the most revenue and grow your practice and things like that, right? So how much do you think a veterinary practice owner should know about digital marketing, and how deep down the rabbit hole should they go? Because I know a lot of practice owners who are actively running their own ads, and they're running, they're doing all of these crazy things, and they've been to medical school, which is amazing. And it's what are you doing? How much do you think they should do?
Well, I I think going down the rabbit hole is absolutely the wrong thing for them to do. I mean, it's like if me as a marketer were going to come in and, start doing veterinary things in the hospital. I mean, that would make no sense. There's just too much to stay on top of, too much to know. And so many times the difference between success and failure is subtle things. I mean, as you know, PPC advertising, there's an art and a science to that. I mean, and unless you're doing it all the time and understand and staying on top of that. So in general, for me, I work with very savvy practice managers. Thankfully, all of my folks are pretty savvy. So I work a lot directly with them. And then they need to know a little bit more. I educate them about sort of the high level understanding. And so when I send them reports, for example, I don't just, a lot of agencies, they basically have to just push a button and generate a report because that's all the bandwidth that they have for that. So with me, I am looking at results and I am looking, month over month, quarter over quarter, year over year, trends, where things didn't work, what things did work, explaining why something did or didn't work. And I do it in sort of a written summary for the client so that it's easy for them to digest. And so I'm able to talk at a business level with them about things so they understand these business concepts. But I mean, for them to go down the rabbit hole of knowing what they need to do for local SEO or how PPC advertising works. I mean, so often you hear people who've said, oh, I've tried Google Ads, for example, and they don't work. Well, a lot of times why they didn't work is because you really didn't understand how to make it work, not that it didn't work. So, I would say they need to understand the concepts. If they can go somewhere, to a webinar or listen to a speaker or educate themselves online to understand digital marketing and how key it is to their business. I'm still, there's still so many veterinary practices and hospitals out there who don't even understand very much the concept of digital marketing. They understand, oh, well, what's the point of posting on social media? I mean, they still don't quite get even how critical digital marketing is going to be to them.
Absolutely.
And so if they at least understand how critical it is and understand the big pieces and kind of how they work together, that's really the level I think that they need to be at. They need to have some sense of, if you've got a company that's coming to sell them something, I see this sometimes. Practice owners want to chase whatever's new and whoever just called them. And they need to have enough of a foundation that they can evaluate something, a sales pitch, to see if it really makes sense for them, or at least have somebody they can go and ask. They don't need to go down the rabbit hole.
Definitely. I think that's a really important piece too, because I think when you're focusing on something, whether it's a new strategy or a new company that's offering services, maybe when you're focusing on that thing, it feels like it's very important, especially if you just were at a conference or something. They're telling you, you need chatbots right now, or, what's the next, strategy or tactic of the month type of a thing, because this come up all the time. And so I think being able to evaluate the sales pitch, especially if it's really good in terms of like, geez, they're telling me everything I want to hear. This sounds fantastic. And I think probably, and I'd like to get your take on it too, but if somebody is telling you something and they're giving you definitive, exact answers, and I know that doesn't sound good, but it's like if somebody brought a pet to you and they said, what's wrong with my pet? And you're a veterinarian, and they want to answer right away, but you haven't done the exam. I think that's the exact same thing with digital marketing. You can't tell people exactly what's going to happen until you have tested a few things and set proper expectations. It's just the same thing. But, I think when trying to avoid those kind of, especially I've heard so many times certain companies will call and say, like, you should be ranking number one for this and we can get you there. Right. Nobody can definitively say that kind of thing. Right. So I think, understanding, the people that are selling you stuff that's not necessarily possible is I think, definitely a skill set that's going to be important. That's probably why a lot of people have been burned when it comes to digital marketing and agencies in general, because it's the low barrier to entry to get into, as far as, experience and things. And so there's a huge, vast difference between somebody who's been doing it for 10 years, which is a very long time, especially in the veterinary industry, versus somebody that's been doing it for a month, which I had a friend who was like, hey, I'm doing digital marketing now for veterinarians because I love pets. And I was like, okay,
Okay.
good
Yeah.
luck.
Yes.
You know,
Well, and I will say too, I get emails from clients who say, hey, I got this sales pitch and they're telling me I need to do this. Do I? And I will come back with them. I'm like, okay, here's what they're saying. So yes, there's some truth to that, but here's the flip side. Here's why it may not make sense for you right now. Like, sure, messenger chatbots, that's going to be a big thing in the near future.
definitely.
If you don't have a lot of other core digital marketing stuff in place, focusing on messenger chatbots, it's, rearranging the deck, the deck chairs on the Titanic kind of thing.
Exactly.
You got to get the basics down first before you go chasing some of that.
Absolutely. It's hitting that kind of hierarchy of, making sure that you have everything in place to maximize the conversion that you're going to get. Because ultimately, most of the strategies that we deploy for clients, they pretty much base on the same principles, right? Just as a difference of medium.
Right.
And so I totally agree with that. So that being said, what do you think, in general, most veterinary practices or veterinary practice managers should be doing that they're not doing right now? And I think too would be interesting to get your take on, what do you think the biggest kind of most important things are going to be for the future here? And the marketplace is constantly changing, so it's hard to say, but what are your kind of thoughts on that?
Sure, certainly. One of the biggest things I see that so many hospital administrators and practice managers, they get pulled so many directions. They have to wear so many hats that they don't get to focus on the business of the practice as much as they should. So they too often have to fill the gaps. And so a lot of times when, I used to onboard at the agency as I was a department head. And so I was onboarding, all of the new clients in that department. So I've talked to, 100 clients as part of their onboarding. And so when I was doing that, I found that most of them, they didn't have any business goals. They didn't know the state of their business. They didn't. So it's hard to know how to market something when you don't even know where you are or what you're shooting for. So one of the things I think is big is just getting a handle on your business, being able to understand that. And from there, you can build on that. And I see a lot of times the ones who are more involved, still just, like, can you clearly communicate to me who your client is and what it is they're looking for? So often they need to be looking ahead, and some of those things are going to be, it's going to be around convenience, and it's going to be around the experience of going to the vet. And so often, especially as the millennials get older, and even thinking about what does my millennial client want versus my older client that's been coming here for 20 years, and even thinking about that and thinking about the whole experience. And so often it's like, well, we like for them to call. Yeah, but if they don't want to call, what then? Are you just writing off everybody who doesn't want to call you on the phone? Or, this is the way we like to do things, or the doctor likes it this way. And they need to shift their thinking from this is the way we like it to, hey, what are our clients' pain points? What are they looking for? How can we delight them in their visit to the vet? How can we make that a really good visit? Because people who enjoy that experience, and if anybody who's losing folks to some of the big chains, convenience is a big part of that. When I talk to people and they're like, oh yeah, I travel a lot, and when I'm here, I like that I don't have to have an appointment, that I can just walk in, that I can book online, or I can text them, and all of those kinds of things. People need to start not focusing on just the busyness of today, but thinking about what's coming.
I think that's a huge insight, and I don't think I talk about that enough, because it's true. Everything in your consumer life, and for some reason, I think veterinarians or practice owners or practice managers, they don't wear the same hat as a consumer when they're in their practice.
Right.
And they're on Amazon buying same day delivery items. And then if it doesn't show up by 4:00, they're like, geez, my delivery didn't show up, like everybody experiences. Like that's what I am too. I'm expecting things to show up same day, or self-checkout, or not talking to people, or like all of these, weird technology advances that are happening that are pushing us to expect instant responses and instant gratification. And, if you set an appointment for this time, you're going to go there and you want to actually have an appointment at that time, And so I think that's a huge.
And you can't expect people to apply a completely different principle to visiting the vet.
No, they're not going to say, it's okay, it's the veterinarian, so I'm going to expect. I mean, like you expect that with the DMV, but do you want to be associated with the DMV?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. That's super, super important. And I agree.
I was working with a new practice in Austin, Texas, and I was there when they were getting off the ground. And one of the things I loved is that, how you go to, I think, Verizon or something, and you walk in and there's somebody greets you and they have a device in their hand and they direct you over to a salesperson or find out what you need. And, this practice was doing that, and all of their prices were on the wall in the lobby, and they were looking for transparency. They were looking for convenience. Like when you walk in, they would try as much as possible to direct you straight into an exam room. I mean, what I loved about them is they were like, let's think about this differently. What would this look like to have something that is right for the client? And, they now have multiple locations. So they're doing something right. It's resonating with people. I'm sure they've changed some things as they've gone. I don't know exactly what they've changed and what they've kept, but I love the fact that they stepped back and said, let's not just open a new practice. Let's think about how we can make this work well for clients.
Definitely. That's some really good insight. Absolutely. And that definitely reminds me of, I was in a Facebook group, I can't remember which one, but one of the doctors or owners was saying, like, how can we turn off our Facebook messaging, because our clients keep messaging us to try to set appointments and we just want them to call. So it's like, you're too busy to pick up money off the ground that's coming in,
Well, and I have to say, with the rise of Messenger chatbot, that will be easier.
Absolutely.
You can handle some of that through that. But I mean, you need to be thinking about multiple channels of people being able to reach you and being able to respond in a very timely manner. Absolutely.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate your insight. What's the best way for people to follow up with you in general? And how's the best way for people to reach you? We were talking about this before too. And
I know so I was telling Brandon, telling you just earlier that, when I launched Solo, I had clients waiting to start. And so I really just kind of did the basic paperwork, wasn't even sure what I wanted my long-term business name to be. So I just jumped in and have been focused on my client stuff. So now though, I'm starting to get people wanting to refer me from other veterinary companies. So I have my name now, Digital Vet Marketing. My logo is in development at the call. Thank you. And as soon as I get that, I'll be putting up my own digital presence. So, the shoemaker's children will get shoes. And but right now, if you want to just send me Sandy, Sandy, at digitalvetmarketing.com, that's probably the best way to reach me. Or my phone number is 520-261-7525.
Perfect. And I will be sure to put that on the podcast website. So if you go to Veterinary Marketing Podcast and you look up episode number 167, you'll have both of those things. We'll also update the website as soon as it's finished. But I was in the exact same boat too. It's just when you're good at what you do, you don't, you have a lot of people that are trying to do business with you. So you just end up working on their stuff instead of your own. Yeah, and so exactly. I still don't have a finished website either. So there you go.
Hopefully a year from now or sooner, we can both say that that's no longer the case.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you again so much, Sandra. I really appreciate your time today. And it was great talking with you. We'll definitely have to have you on the podcast again sometime in the near future. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. All right, so I hope this was helpful to you. I thought there was some really great insight in there. Thank you so much, Sandra, for coming on the podcast. I really enjoyed interviewing you, and thank you so much again for listening. Listen, if you have any questions, you need help with anything, please don't hesitate to reach out. Again, head on over to the Facebook group, search for the Veterinary Marketing Nerds. Be sure to sign up there, and I'll see you on the next episode. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Bye.